Today we will delve into a topic that, unfortunately, is all too common in daily life: manipulation. This negative social influence highlights how individuals or organizations use subtle tactics to gain control and advantage over others. Manipulation can take place in many areas of life, whether in the workplace, personal relationships, or large social groups. Thus, understanding and reflecting on these tactics is crucial not only to safeguard one's autonomy, but also to promote healthier and more transparent relationships. Learning to defend oneself is essential, and for that, we will explore the most intense manipulation tactics. Remember, all knowledge is neutral and depends on the user to give it a purpose. Hence, these tactics are dark, and this content aims to help you protect yourself from them, not to use them against others. This knowledge is like a tool. It can create magnificent works or commit evil deeds. Therefore, use all the knowledge you absorb in this video responsibly, whether for self-defense or personal development. We will understand how manipulation silently infiltrates our lives, often without our awareness. We'll demystify these techniques not just to recognize them, but also to equip ourselves with the tools needed to combat them. By the end, you'll be more prepared to face the world with a more critical eye and a more alert mind. Here is the darkest aspect of manipulation. Before we start, please like and subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot and costs you nothing. Let's get started. 1. Triangulation. This subtle yet powerful manipulation tactic involves introducing a third person into a relationship dynamic to create division, tension, or confusion. The manipulator uses this third person as a tool to control, destabilize the existing relationship, or divert attention from their own questionable actions. In triangulation, the manipulator may play one person against another by sharing distorted or confidential information between parties, or using the third person to validate their own opinions and feelings while discrediting the other party. This can lead victims to doubt their perceptions and feelings, isolating them and making them more dependent on the manipulator. For instance, in a family context, a parent might speak ill of one child to another, creating an alliance with the second and leaving the first isolated and insecure. In the workplace, a boss might share negative information about one employee with another, generating rivalry and distrust. Triangulation is particularly destructive as it corrupts trust and direct communication between the involved parties, allowing the manipulator to maintain control and avoid responsibility for conflicts or misunderstandings. Victims often find themselves in a cycle of misunderstandings and conflicts without fully understanding the origin or the manipulator's role. Countering triangulation requires recognizing the tactic, open and honest communication between the manipulated parties, and a strong sense of personal boundaries. It is crucial to question the validity of the information received, seek clarifications directly with the other parties involved, and refuse to participate in conversations or actions that foster division or distrust. 2. Double bind. This psychological manipulation places the victim between two contradictory choices or conflicting messages, ensuring that regardless of the decision made, they will be wrong or at a disadvantage. This tactic confuses and controls the victim, making them feel powerless, confused, and anxious, as there is no correct or satisfactory way out. The manipulator may communicate mutually exclusive expectations or demands. For example, a parent might criticize a child for not being open and communicative, but reprimands them for being disrespectful or overly sensitive when the child tries to express their feelings. The child is put in a double bind, punished if they open up, and criticized if they remain silent. In relationships, one person may say they want more independence but become upset or distant when the partner spends time alone. The victim becomes confused and insecure about how to act, as all their actions seem to result in a negative response. This type of manipulation is particularly insidious, as it attacks the person's ability to trust their own perception and judgment, leading to constant self-doubt and decreased self-esteem, making them more dependent on the manipulator. To deal with a double bind, it is important to recognize that the situation is a manipulation trap, not a reflection of one's incompetence or failure. Seeking support from trusted friends, counselors, or therapists can help validate the victim's perceptions and feelings. Additionally, setting clear boundaries and communicating assertively are crucial steps to protect oneself against this type of manipulation. 3. Projection. In this manipulation tactic, the manipulator attributes their own flaws, feelings, or inappropriate intentions to the victim. This occurs when the manipulator is unable or unwilling to acknowledge their shortcomings or negative behaviors and instead projects them onto the other person, making them feel guilty or in doubt about their actions or feelings. This defense mechanism distorts the victim's reality, leading them to question their perceptions and feel responsible for problems or feelings that belong to the manipulator. For example, a jealous partner may accuse the other of being unfaithful or flirting when it is the accuser who has these thoughts or behaviors. Projection allows the manipulator to divert attention from their flaws and transfer responsibility to the victim, often making them feel defensive, confused, or guilty without cause. This can weaken the victim's self-esteem and increase their emotional dependence on the manipulator. Confronting projection requires the victim to maintain a strong sense of their own reality and boundaries. It is important to recognize when targeted by this tactic and not to internalize unfounded accusations. Keeping a record of thoughts and feelings, seeking feedback from trustworthy third parties, and practicing self-affirmation are useful strategies for combating projection. Additionally, learning to emotionally distance oneself from the manipulator and establishing clear boundaries are essential. In extreme cases, it may be necessary to cut ties or seek professional support to deal with this form of manipulation. 4. Time pressure. This manipulation tactic forces the victim to make quick decisions by creating a false sense of urgency. The manipulator claims that action must be taken immediately to avoid negative consequences or that a unique opportunity is about to expire, exploiting the fear of loss and anxiety, reducing the time the victim has to think, research, or consult other opinions. For example, this strategy is often used in high-pressure sales, where the seller insists that an offer is for a limited time or that only a few items remain. However, it can also be found in personal and professional relationships, such as when someone demands an immediate response to a significant request or imposes an unrealistic deadline for an important decision. Under time pressure, the manipulated individual may make hasty decisions to their own detriment and the manipulator's benefit. The artificial urgency prevents the victim from evaluating all options, consulting third parties, or simply listening to their intuition. To combat this tactic, it is essential to recognize when someone is trying to manipulate time to influence your decision. Ask for time to think. Do not succumb to the pressure to act immediately, and remember that few decisions genuinely require an instant response. Additionally, be aware that time pressure is a red flag for manipulation, and often by waiting, additional information may emerge that will help make a more informed and balanced decision. 5. Inconsistency and unpredictability. This manipulation tactic involves the manipulator acting erratically and unpredictably, causing confusion and insecurity in the victim. This behavior can range from extremes such as being loving and attentive one moment to cold or disdainful the next, for no apparent reason. This pattern of behavior keeps the victim in a constant state of disorientation and anxiety, as they cannot predict or understand the manipulator's actions. This tactic is often used in abusive relationships where the abuser alternates between kindness and cruelty to create an emotionally unstable environment. The victim, trying to understand the manipulator's behavior and yearning for approval or love, may find themselves trapped in a cycle of trying to please the manipulator, never achieving stability or satisfaction. Unpredictability is effective as it capitalizes on the human desire for consistency and stability. When a person's actions do not follow a logical or predictable pattern, it becomes difficult for others to adapt or respond appropriately, leading to a state of emotional and psychological dependence on the manipulator, who appears to be the only source of solution or relief. To deal with inconsistency and unpredictability, it is important for the victim to recognize the manipulator's pattern of behavior and understand that it is not their responsibility to constantly correct or adapt to please the other. Establishing clear boundaries and maintaining emotional distance from the manipulator are vital. Additionally, seeking support from friends, family, or professionals can provide the perspective and support needed to deal with this form of manipulation and rebuild self-esteem and independence. In emotional blackmail. Here, the manipulator exploits another person's emotions to get what they want. This usually involves creating a sense of obligation, fear, guilt, or shame in the target, leading them to act against their interests or values to satisfy the manipulator's demands. At the core of emotional blackmail is the abuse of the emotional bond between the parties. The manipulator may suggest, directly or indirectly, that their well-being, happiness, or love depends on the victim's action, creating a situation where the victim feels responsible for the manipulator's emotional state. Common examples of emotional blackmail include phrases like, "If you really loved me, you would do this," or "I can't believe you would let me do this alone." These statements impose a false sense of duty and instill fear of loss or guilt for not meeting expectations. To deal with emotional blackmail, it is important to recognize when it is happening, establish and maintain clear boundaries, and communicate assertively. This involves expressing your own needs and feelings without allowing fear, guilt, or obligation to dictate your actions. Reinforcing self-esteem and seeking external support, whether from friends, family, or professionals, can also be crucial to withstand the pressure and maintain your own agency. 7. Gaslighting. In gaslighting, the manipulator denies certain events occurred or distorts facts to contradict the victim's memory. They may devalue the victim's feelings, label their reactions as irrational, or use privileged information to discredit them, leading the victim to constant self-doubt and a search for external validation. This manipulation can occur in personal relationships, the workplace, or broader contexts like politics or the media. Gaslighting's impact is profound, leading to anxiety, depression, and a loss of trust in one's own perceptions and memories. Countering gaslighting involves strengthening trust in oneself and one's perceptions. This may include keeping a record of events or conversations, seeking external perspectives to validate reality, and establishing firm boundaries with the manipulator. In serious cases, it may be necessary to remove oneself from the toxic situation. Recognizing and naming the experience empowers the victim and diminishes the manipulator's control. 8. False social approval. This manipulation technique involves the manipulator pretending or exaggerating the level of support, agreement, or approval from others to influence the victim. The manipulator may fabricate stories, distort facts, or create an illusion of consensus to convince the victim that a certain opinion, behavior, or product is more popular or acceptable than it actually is. This tactic exploits the human tendency to conform to group norms and seek social approval. By simulating broad acceptance or support, the manipulator induces the victim to think that by following a certain line of action, they are joining the majority and making the correct or popular choice. For example, in advertising, this can be seen in the use of testimonials from satisfied customers that are not genuine, or in claiming a product is the best-selling without concrete evidence. In personal relationships, a manipulator may falsely claim that everyone thinks or says something to pressure the victim to agree or conform. To defend against false social approval, it is crucial to develop critical thinking and question the truthfulness of claims of popularity or acceptance. Seek concrete and reliable evidence before accepting claims of consensus, and maintain confidence in one's perceptions and judgments, even if that means standing against the supposed majority. Recognizing and understanding this manipulation tactic allows people to make more authentic choices, less influenced by the pressure to conform to fictitious or exaggerated social norms. 9. Concealment of information. This manipulation strategy involves one party deliberately withholding important or relevant information from another party to influence decisions or perceptions. This method can significantly alter the victim's understanding and behavior as they make decisions based on an incomplete or distorted understanding of reality. This type of manipulation can occur in various contexts, from personal relationships to business transactions and politics. For example, in a relationship, a partner may hide information about their finances or past relationships, affecting trust and dynamics. In the workplace, a colleague or superior might omit critical project details, impairing an employee's ability to complete tasks efficiently or make informed decisions. Defending against the concealment of information involves being aware of this possibility and adopting a questioning and investigative approach. Fact-checking from multiple sources, asking detailed questions, and seeking transparency in interactions and transactions are crucial. Developing critical awareness and not accepting information at face value can help identify when important information may be concealed. Understanding that the concealment of information is a form of manipulation helps people become more vigilant and less susceptible to being influenced by decisions or opinions based on incomplete or distorted information. 10. Fear attachment. Manipulators using fear attachment often create a do-or-die scenario, making the victim believe something terrible will happen if they do not comply. This can range from direct threats to subtle insinuations or creating negative hypothetical scenarios, aiming to make the victim feel they have no choice but to obey or agree with the manipulator to avoid the feared outcome. This technique can be observed in many contexts, including personal relationships, workplaces, marketing, and even politics. For instance, a partner may use the fear of abandonment to control the other's behavior, or a boss may imply an employee's job security depends on compliance with certain demands. In advertising, fear attachment can convince consumers they need a product to avoid some danger or social embarrassment. To defend against fear attachment, it is important to recognize when fear is being used as a manipulation tool. Question the reality of the threats presented, objectively evaluate one's options, and seek advice or alternative perspectives. Staying calm and not acting impulsively under the influence of fear is crucial, as is strengthening self-esteem and support networks to reduce vulnerability to fear-based manipulation. 11. Blame game. This manipulation strategy involves the manipulator shifting the responsibility for their mistakes, failures, or behaviors onto the victim. This tactic aims to make the victim feel guilty, even if they have done nothing wrong, leading them to doubt themselves, apologize excessively, and take on responsibilities that are not theirs. Manipulators use the blame game to divert attention from their inappropriate actions, maintaining control and avoiding consequences. By making the victim feel responsible for negative problems or situations, the manipulator can maintain power and influence, weakening the victim's self-esteem and assertiveness. To defend against the blame game, maintain a clear sense of reality and not accept blame for things outside one's control or clearly someone else's responsibility. Strengthening self-awareness and self-esteem helps recognize and reject unfair assignments of blame. Keeping a record of events and conversations can be useful for contesting false accusations and maintaining an objective perspective. Additionally, establish clear boundaries with the manipulator and communicate assertively that shifting blame is unacceptable. Seeking support from friends, family, or professionals can also provide validation and additional perspective, helping the victim break free from the imposed cycle of guilt. 12. False praise. This manipulation technique involves the manipulator using insincere compliments to influence and control the victim. This approach is used to gain the victim's trust, make them lower their guard, or make them feel indebted. False praise is often used to soften someone before a request or to distract them from hidden intentions. Skilled manipulators use compliments to create a positive atmosphere and a false sense of security. When a person feels valued or praised, they are more likely to want to return the favor or maintain the positive feeling, making them more susceptible to influence. The compliments can be directed at appearance, intelligence, abilities, or any other attribute of the victim. To protect against false praise, develop the ability to discern the sincerity of compliments received. Observe the behavior pattern of the praiser, the context in which compliments are made, and the congruence between the individual's words and actions. Additionally, maintaining healthy self-esteem and not depending on external validation allows the person to accept compliments without being unduly influenced by them. 13. Victimization. This manipulation tactic involves the manipulator presenting themselves as a victim of unfair circumstances, other people, or events beyond their control. This strategy is used to gain sympathy, avoid responsibility for their actions, and influence others' behavior in their favor. By portraying themselves as victims, manipulators seek to evoke compassion and induce others to make concessions, offer help, or modify their expectations and behaviors towards the manipulator. This manipulation can be particularly effective as it appeals to the natural human instinct to help and protect those who are suffering or at a disadvantage. To protect against manipulation by victimization, maintain a balance between empathy and objectivity. Recognize when someone is going through a genuinely difficult time, but also critically assess the situation, especially if patterns of victimization emerge. Establish clear boundaries and maintain a balanced perspective on the responsibilities and actions of each individual involved. 14. Intentional silence. This manipulation tactic involves the intentional use of silence or refusal to communicate as a way to exert power, control, or punishment. Also known as the silent treatment, this form of manipulation invalidates the victim's emotional expression, creating an environment of uncertainty, anxiety, and isolation. The manipulator refuses to respond to communication attempts, ignoring messages, calls, or direct attempts at dialogue. This can leave the victim feeling rejected, insecure, and desperate for resolution or explanation. The goal of the manipulator is to make the victim question their behavior, feelings, and worth, often leading them to assume the blame for the silence and make concessions or apologies, even when not at fault. To deal with tactics of silence, recognize that this is a form of emotional manipulation and not a reflection of one's value or guilt. Maintain one's integrity, seek external support, and communicate feelings clearly without begging for attention. Establish clear boundaries and, if necessary, reevaluate the value and viability of the relationship with the manipulator to protect one's emotional well-being. Remember, practicing the virtue of justice is an essential Stoic lesson. This includes treating others fairly and equitably while ensuring that we are not allowing others to abuse our kindness or empathy. Finally, Stoicism teaches us to seek wisdom and truth, which means seeking a deep understanding of situations and people's motivations, avoiding hasty judgments based on emotions. If you've watched up to this point, please leave a comment. Also, I would like to hear your opinion. In your view, what could be tactic number 15? I await your response. See you soon.